module and also other several control moment gyroscope inside the 问天 module, we can change the attitude of the whole station only using electricity. You know that if we use propellants, use engines, we will exhaust some of the very valuable propellant. But with the control moment gyroscope, we can change the attitude of the station very easily, only use electricity. You know that electricity is regenerative, so it saves a lot of energy and very valuable resources. So you can see, although it is an educational example, but still it is very, very useful to the whole station. And also not only those pupils and high school students can get very useful information from that.
Yeah, I mean, he gave us a great demonstration of
yes,
that.
but also that it's very contribution to the education of the undergraduates and even postgraduates. So this is a really meaningful educational lecture.
Well, in terms of Gui Haichao, so he's the payload expert, right? So what particular experiments was he in charge of?
长征报告申请发送主反灭亡手
Mr.
控指
Gui
令。
Haichao,
yes. Although
you
know that he is the first payload expert in
神舟16
China,
号，
but
我是
actually
北京。
speaking, his major field is engineering. So he get his PhD degree in Beihang University for one moment. Please. We've already seen the videos inside our re-entry capsule. You can see Mr. Jing Haipeng is sitting in the middle. And on his left, I believe, is Mr. Yangzhu, and on the other side is Mr. Gui Haichao. You may notice that Mr. Gui Haichao has not wearing his glasses.
Let's have a listen to what they're saying there. I think they're just communicating to each other, or are they communicating to the ground staff there?
神舟16号报告，主反灭亡手控指令反灭。
北京明白。
They're just relaying some information to the ground team there. A status update from the Shenzhou-16.
Yes. So at this moment, the whole Shenzhou spaceship is still outside the atmosphere. So we have very good connections between the Shenzhou spacecraft and the ground with the help of the Tianlian data relay satellite.
So we're looking at the commander in the middle, and then to his left is... Can't really see his face there.
I believe it's Mr. Zhu Yangzhu.
And then
on his right is Mr. Gui Haichao.
And they're very busy right now looking at some manuals. What's likely to be in this this booklet that they're looking at?
They are holding the manual of the operations, not only include the routinary operations, but those in emergency cases. So they must remember all the options very carefully, because anything can happen. You know that the re-entry is a very risky process, not only for China but for all space-capable nations. So the most dangerous part is for a flight mission is during the launch or the ascending phase and the re-entry.
But presumably they've already read this many times. They're very familiar with this. So I mean, on their way back, they left at as we were saying earlier, 8:37 p.m. Beijing time, right? So up until now, that's already almost 11 hours. What will they have been doing on this return journey back?
We know the station is about 397 kilometers above the Earth, above the sea level. So we know there's a very high altitude, and at that environment, there's no atmosphere, and there's what we call no drags from the atmosphere. So they have to then detach from the station. As previously we have seen that they are taking some photos, and they're taking their time to deorbiting. So they have to come down to a couple of maneuvers. One has to come down to about 200 plus, so that they have to change orbit from 400 to a lower orbit, almost half the altitude, and then they have to fine tune that orbit, including attitude and altitude. So they have been doing that for the past 10 or 11 hours, and then they are coming to the final stage where they have to come another step down, where they are experiencing some drags from the atmosphere. And so there's many controls and many elements that needs to be carefully maneuvered before they insert themselves to the final orbit. of coming back.
So they kept very busy during this long journey back. I mean, not really any kind of spare moments to sit around and relax.
And this time, one difference from the previous mission is that after detached or deorbited from the Tiangong space station, our Shenzhou-16 crew has a very special task to use their handheld high-definition camera to take the videos of the whole station.
依次调姿开始。
Okay,
Right,
the
so
first
they're doing an
attitude maneuver.
adjustment. That's right. So every time that on the journey home, there's two times that they have to adjust their altitude, right?
Yeah. So you can see this is a 3D animation, but with which represents the real-time status of the vehicle. You see that it has turned 90 degrees in your direction to the left. So at this moment, the critical step will be the separation between the orbital module and the re-entry capsule.
So let's just look at this together. So at the very top is the orbital module, and then the return capsule is the part in the middle.
And then the propulsion module.
Service module.
And then service module, and then the two wings of the solar panels that help to power.
On the service module.
依次调姿到位。
So they separate the orbital module.
They've reached the adjustment for the altitude.
长城报告，第一次调姿到位。
The separation speed between the two parts will be 1
there's
to
the
2
separation right
meters
there.
per second. Oh, great. Already successfully separated.
How many meters per second?
1 to 2 meters per second.
Hang
This to
on,
avoid the collision between
违反分
the
离
two. Because they've already in different planes, theoretically speaking. And then conduct the second attitude maneuver.
So this is now the second adjustment, and then
Beijing
the
Beijing
module and
to make the rocket engines on the rear part of the propulsion module to the front.
So just to explain to us what each of these modules do, if you can. So we just saw the orbiting module leave and separate.
But the orbit module has been used for docking a rendezvous with the station, and it has a function like.
Sorry, just to interrupt you. They just announced that they've reached the second adjustment of the altitude, so
exactly,
they're
and then
on track now.
Yeah,
to come
and
back.
you can see the firing of the module. That's a little firing of the engines.
Yes, the
that is to
lights
adjust
inside.
the attitude of the capsule, so that they are ready for the separation of the service module with the capsule, and then capsule can start re-entering into the ballistic that has been pre-designated. And the service module is providing a lot of functions, including the fuels. Solar panel provides electricity. So all the, let's say, all these functions and all these powers that supplying the capsule has been provided by the service module. After the separation, the capsule can only use the batteries on board.
Okay, the re-entry burn start.
Right, so,
So you can see on the 3D animation on the top
发
right
动机
of
开
the
机，返回制动开始。
Okay,
right,
the
the engine
re-entry
is
burn.
on. That's right.
So you know that in the propulsion module or the service module, as Mr. Xu mentioned, we have 4 main engines, each with a thrust of 2,500 newtons. Please notice that we only need 2 of them, so we can see the other 2 as the backup to ensure the safety return of our astronauts.
But if you can put that in a bit of context for us, when you say it only uses
2,500 newton. We use 2 of these engines for the re-entry burn.
So what you're seeing, the burning of the engine, including the engine itself and the fuels, are on the service module. Once the burn is done, the separation will occur. So the service module will conduct its final mission, which is to have what we call a brake burn or re-entry burn.
You may notice also on this 3D animation we can see some smaller flames.
Yeah.
That is the flames of the attitude control engines and small engines. You know that during the burn of the main engine, we should keep the attitude of the vehicle stable. So we use the attitude control engines. There are multiple, more than 40 attitude control engines to change and to keep the attitude of the whole spacecraft.
Why do they only do the altitude adjustments twice? I mean, is there a reason for that? Can it be
Because
done
the
in one go?
deorbiting must face in the right direction. In our professional field, we call this the delta V. The delta V we given must be in a certain direction required, and also the certain amount of propellants exerted. Only in this way we can enter the right re-entry trajectory to go down directly to the Dongfeng landing site.
But why not just adjust it in one go? Would that be technically
as you
more
already
challenging?
seen, because you know that we need to separate the orbital module first. So it is no longer needed to saving much of the energy. You know that the orbital module is more than 1 ton, about 2 tons also. So we must separate that first, and then we can save a lot of propellant for the re-entry. But you know that to avoid any collision, so the better choice is to separate that in the to a different orbital plane. As you've already seen, the first orbital maneuver is attitude maneuver is turned for 90 degrees. So with this measure, when the direction of
长征报告，
separation
自动
is
结
in
束
the different.
八个
Okay.
关机，返回制动结束。北京引导数据发出，东风。
So they have to check the parameters of the capsule. Once everyone is happy with the speed and angle, then there's a separation of the service module.
猛士
But once the service module is separated from the re-entry module, then what's powering the re-entry module?
It's basically a free fall. You can imagine if there's a basketball and there's a piece of paper, and you have to travel within the thickness of the piece of paper into the basketball to enter to the precise point where we can recover. So it's very precise control. You can see a lot of altitude and with service altitude control engines firing. That is to fine-tune the beginning of the free fall, which is very important to the trajectory of the capsule.
That's why it's so important that they get the module facing the right. So we can hear that right now they're just sending a series of commands and just checking in with the various different ground stations.
Yeah, the ground station is stretched out all the way from, I think this capsule once again is returning from Africa back to Pakistan on its trajectory to the Gobi Desert. So it's traveling from that direction. So we're seeing a series of ground stations checking their availability of
风暴、
signals
飞船呼
on
炮
the
及
Shenzhou
身体情况。
That's of course very important to monitoring their safe return. So right now we're looking at to the right an image of the Dongfeng.
I believe this is video is taken from the vehicles in Dongfeng landing site.
The massive
See the dawn of the Dongfeng landing site.
So the ground station not only tracks the capsule itself, but also provides parameters to the ground rescue control,
for
rescue
them to
teams,
locate.
so that they constantly updating the exact location
Right.
or which is predicted to be landing for the capsule.
So with the prediction for the locations, how big of a area would that be to start with?
You know
before it
that we
gets really
have
refined?
you know that we have Beidou navigation
Right.
satellite receivers on board our Shenzhou spacecraft. So after the re-entry plan we just witnessed, so there is several critical steps. One important step is to, based on the receiver of the Beidou navigation satellite signals, we can calculate the right velocity and the position of our Shenzhou spacecraft. So based on this, we can have a very precise prediction of the re-entry itself. But
Precise to what sort of scale?
That depends on which phase you are in. You know that there are many errors that can cause the deviation. For instance, the density of the upper atmosphere. So it's very so we cannot have a very precise prediction of that. And you know, during the re-entry, after separation of the re-entry capsule and the propulsion module, we can have control of the re-entry capsule. You know, we also have a very unique propulsion system inside the re-entry capsule. It only changes the attitude in the roll direction. And also, you know that during the when the re-entry capsule dive into the atmosphere, we also have the aerodynamic forces not only in the flight direction but on the perpendicular direction to have lift. With the change of the attitude of the re-entry capsule, we can change the direction of the lift forces and then adjust the trajectory So in different phases, we have different error.
So I'm interested to know then, in terms of this three-man crew, the rest of the crews, the last one and this coming one, I expect, are all going to be in the space station for about 6 months, right?
Yeah,
The previous one was 6 months as well, but they only spent 5 months up there. Is there any particular reason for this?
Well, there are multiple reasons can cause this arrangement. One thing I guess is that that during the previous missions, that during the re-entry, maybe it already happened just before the end of November. At that moment, it will be very, very cold in the Dongfeng landing site. So this time we only conducted 5 months. So at this moment, it will be a very ideal season for the return of our heroes. And also, more, that every year we should launch the manned spacecraft twice every year. So if it is too late, maybe it is feasible for the April or May mission, but will not be very comfortable for the November or December, even December.
Right.
So this time we stay there for 5 months, which means that this time we can go back home in October. So as I mentioned, it will be more comfortable than go back 1 month later in November. That will be very, very cold.
So then do you think this is a sort of pattern we'll see for future crews, 5 months, 6 months in rotation like this?
Yeah. So we still have some margin and also some flexibility to adjust the...
各号注意，我是北京。下面通报返回舱第一次落点预报。落点经度：东经1洞洞度动5分，动拐秒；东经1洞洞度动5分，动拐秒。落点纬度：北纬41度3拐分51秒。北纬41度3拐分51秒。北京第一次落点预报已发出。雄鹰。
雄鹰明白。落点经度，东经1洞洞度。
It is repeated several times. So because this is very, very important for the ground team.
So we're looking at this image right now of the landing site area, and it does look
正确
quite
王室
hazy there. Is this an okay condition for the return?
It's a normal condition, although that it's much better than that in November or December.
So visibility isn't too big of an issue here for...
It's not a very big issue, but that in this operation phase of the Tiangong space station, so we must standing by for any emergency returns if anything wrong happened to the station. So we must stand there. We should think about the feasibility, and also that because the Tiangong space station orbiting the Earth in different altitude, in different phases, not like the Shenzhou missions before and the Tiangong 1 and Tiangong 2 mission before. So we must have a wider range of the landing site to have multiple choices.
The Dongfeng landing site, that's not China's only landing site,
Not
is
the
it?
only one. In the years before, we used the Sizhiwang Banner landing site. It's in the 2,000 kilometers to the east of the Dongfeng landing site. Because that in recent years, with the population becomes more and more people in the Sizhiwang Banner, and also that we need a bigger one, so we changed that to the Dongfeng site. Another advantage to use the Dongfeng landing site is that that during the launch we also need a rescue team, because for anything wrong happen in emergency escape, we need the rescue team to rescue our astronaut. So with the landing site chosen at the Dongfeng landing site, we can combine the two teams together to save a lot of money. So this is another advantage.
It's very practical concerns
exactly.
there as well. And the rescue crew, the safety search crew that's waiting for the Shenzhou-16, this is I read is much bigger than the last crew that was waiting for the Shenzhou-15. So they've got nearly 100 ground forces, I think, and also 5 helicopters.
It's still 5 helicopters. One will act as the commanding vehicle, and the other 4 to assist the commander.
And how would they be placed in the landing site? Would they be spread out in different locations, and then once we know the more precise location, they'll all gather?
So it's like the matrix form, so that they're staying in one corner of the square,
Right.
Each corner of the square will have one helicopter with 3 helicopters on one line with a command helicopter.
So
on
one
the
in the
bottom.
center and then one on
No,
each corner.
there's nothing on the center because the center is
Oh,
giving.
where the capsule will be coming from.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a
So you don't want
formation of
anyone
these
blocking it.
matrix formation for the flight of the helicopters, a square.
But either the helicopters and the ground vehicles will move constantly based on the prediction. As I mentioned, we will have at least 4 times of trajectory prediction based on the different phases. We have the data from as Mr. Xu mentioned, we have ground stations along the trajectory, and also we have the Payload navigation satellite receiver on board our Shenzhou spacecraft.
And we're just hearing more information being relayed there saying that everything is normal.
Yeah,
Operation
and the
as
next step will be maybe several minutes later will be the separation between the propulsion module and the re-entry capsule. Yeah.
But if it can be so exact, if the final landing location can be really pinned down, then why is it necessary to have the landing crews so spread out in the first place? I mean, if eventually you can why not just have them all together and then send them in once the location is
There's no certainty for the capsule to return because once it's separated from the propulsion or service module, it's on its own. The control is barely by the shape of the capsule itself and also by the speed and the re-entry beginning point, what we call root point. And then you would have a very different varieties of factors, including even wind in the atmosphere once you have deployment of the parachute. So there are many factors that are affecting this re-entry process. You never know where exactly it's going to be land. We are only calculating by different parameters at different phases and different altitude. So we have to be very dynamic in terms of pin down the location of the capsule.
Right. So it makes sense to have them spread out so they can reach the capsule in the fastest
So what we
time
see now, I believe, is a video taken from the camera mounted on the helicopter.
So there's no setting up of the camps and waiting for it to come back to your front yard. You have to be very dynamic in moving your squares around.
So it starts off with a search parameter of roughly how big? So say the different teams are all spread out.
Well, the total area of the landing site is about 12 or 13,000 square kilometers.
And eventually,
so it's very huge.
Okay, so eventually it'll get narrowed down to roughly.
Exactly. So after each trajectory prediction, it will shrink smaller and smaller, and finally a very precise one. But after each trajectory prediction announced by the commander in Beijing Flight Control Center, the ground vehicles and the helicopters will change their direction to the next predicted landing point.
Even that we have a what we call a landing site, but also we have a bilateral agreement with the country of Mongolia that in case this it did not land on the Inner Mongolia or land on other countries, we have to initiate that bilateral agreement to search and rescue our astronauts from other countries.
And who will be in charge of helping with the search mission then? Would it be Chinese
It would
staff,
be
or would it
Chinese
be
in combination of the local authorities in Mongolia. So also on the international side, we also have 4 treaties. One of them is the Search and Rescue Treaty by all countries that should be open for the search and rescue of the astronauts in case they didn't land in their own home country.
So would China already have crews stationed in these countries that they have the agreements with, just in case?
Not really, but in case of landing, we have a preparation of in all scenarios. But this is unlikely. But once you have these what we call malfunctions, we'll have to initiate this agreement. But that has never been done before. What we have a hard landing, which is landing on the surface of the land. Other countries, they have a return capsule that have a soft landing, which is on the sea. So there are many scenarios and many ways. And we also know that the shuttle, what they call a shuttle of the U.S. has also agreement and also contingency landing site in Chile because they have different possibilities of returning of the astronauts. So this has to be made very safely for all humanity.
What are the pros and cons of a hard landing versus a soft landing?
Well, I think hard landing is very easy to have search and rescue, and also you have crews and facilities that is easy and ready. Soft landing is approach that I wouldn't say obsolete, but has not been done recently because the U.S. is not flying this soft landing process, and also I think this has started at the very beginning from the 60s by the U.S. using soft landing in the ocean, but you have to use return and search and rescue vessels and boats to go to the site, and also helicopters to rescue them, and also you have what we call it a water contingency, which means you might have a case of drowning in the ocean. But also, even in the same case, we do have also soft landing options for the Chinese astronauts.
Right.
We even had trainings in Qingdao and in Shandong province in the ocean to imitate the scenario of a soft landing by the Chinese capsule, which is both ways are possible.
What would be theoretically more comfortable in terms of landing for the astronauts? Would it be a soft or a hard one?
Of course,
landing
that's
in the water.
It will be more hostile if you splash down in the sea, in the
More
ocean.
hostile.
More dangerous. Even if comparing with the forest or Gobi Desert,
Right.
if you land splash down in the sea, that will be more dangerous for astronauts. So they must be trained for this. That as Mr. Xu mentioned, we have this kind of trainings for the astronauts. This is a very necessary course for all astronauts, no exception. Even it is very interesting that several years before we conduct this kind of training with the attendance of foreign astronauts. Actually speaking, in Yantai, near the Shandong province, Mr. Matthias Mochier and also Miss Samantha Cristoforetti, one from Germany and the other from Italy, joined this training during several years before for the rescue in the sea. Moreover, all the astronauts must also be trained to survive. They can survive for more than 2 days in a very hostile environment, for instance, in the forest or in the desert. So, at the introduction by some major media of China, Mr. Haichao and Mr. Yangzhu, because they are the first time conduct their flight mission. Just before their mission, they were also trained in the Gobi Desert and stayed there for more than 2 days. And they even need to drink their own urine to survive, because there are only a very limited supply of water inside
that they can
red
carry
capsule.
back with them. But why would they not be able to carry more then, just in case? I mean,
because
this is
that
the
we only
potential-
have a limited volume in the reactor. That it is a very narrow space for 3 people, so we can
Yeah, they
only
look really
very
special.
limited supplies. And one interesting thing is that they even have pistols. They even have guns to protect themselves. For instance, maybe they will land possibly in the emergency case. They will land in the forest. Maybe there are
Wild
beasts,
animals,
yes,
right, yeah.
animals. So they have pistols.
So I understand that it's more dangerous, obviously, for them to be landing in water than potentially. But then, in terms of the impact of the capsule reaching, capsule landing in water and capsule landing on the land, have we managed to reach a sort of technology where it is just as comfortable and cushioned for the astronauts?
You see
on
that
land?
to touch down on the land will be more rigid than splash down
Yeah.
on the water. So we have 4 very small rocket engines. Then that we also have another very important device called the gamma ray altimeter. We can measure the precise distance between the bottom of the vehicle and the ground. So when the distance between the vehicle and the ground is 1 meter or so, it will ignite the 4 small rocket motors called the retro rocket, and the speed will turn from about 8 meters per second to 1 or 2 meters per second. So it will touch down very softly. Besides these measurements, we also, that just before the touchdown, we also raise the chairs of the astronauts after the deployment of the parachute. So this can also dump many of the energy of the impact. So with all these measures, we can ensure that the touchdown is very comfortable for our astronauts.
All right. Well, let's check in with our reporter now. Zheng Yibing is at the Beijing Aerospace Control Center. Yibing, so what updates do you have for us there?
Well, yes, Xiaoyang, here at the Beijing Air Space Control Center, everybody is counting down to the moment of the return of the Shenzhou-16 mission and the crew members. And also, according to the basic situation, we found the air and ground detachments at the Dongfeng landing site. They are in position at the Gobi Desert of the northwestern part of China's Inner Mongolia autonomous region. And the medical treatment vehicles are also in position for the readaptation of the taikonauts or Chinese astronauts, readaptation to the gravity on Earth. And here at the Beijing Air Space Control Center, we can hear the command word from the operator here. They're saying Beijing copy to all working systems, not just at the landing site, but also the telemetry and remote control systems across China. And we can hear that these people that are basically working here are some commanding word from the different systems. So on right behind me on the big screen, we can see from the live streaming videos. You just hear the Beijing copy from the Chinese word and Beijing Mingbai. And on the big screen, we can hear the status of the re-entry module Shenzhou-16 and also the 3 taikonauts, the commander Jing Haipeng and the space pilot Yangzhu and also the payload specialist Haichao. Inside the re-entry module, reading the instruction books and getting the final preparation for the return mission. So here at the Beijing Aerospace Control Center, BACC, we wish them a complete success. Back to you.
Thank you, Yibing, and we'll check in with you a bit later in the show. Well, I mean, China has done this so many times now. I mean, this is, it seems to be fairly routine, but really this is a very risky process, isn't it? It's fraught with lots of danger. So at what particular points do you think are the most dangerous for these astronauts coming back?
Well, I think one of the most critical moments is what we call blackout time, where you have a very high velocity of the capsule, have strong friction with the atmosphere that created plasma, and that stops the signals traveling from capsule back to Earth and the other way around. So there's what we call a very intense heating of the capsule. You know that I visited the factory that produced the capsule itself. It's in fact a big aluminium structure, but using a lot of technologies on the surface of the structure, we created a thermal controllable, we'll call it skin that can also burn the carbons to reduce the temperature of the capsule so that it can survive the blackout process. I think that's one of the critical moments, and the other critical moment would be the deployment of the parachute.
Right.
That is a crucial process. You don't have that, you don't have a safe return of the astronauts. So these are, I think, basically 2 very important points that we have to watch out.
And that's why often the deployment of the parachute is considered a moment where everyone can breathe a sigh of relief, right? This is almost like the success of the landing.
The Shenzhou spaceship operating the airspace, the first cosmic speed, about 7.8 kilometers per second. So we must reduce that speed to 0 to have a safety return. To reduce that to 0, mainly we depend on the aerodynamic forces. But with the aerodynamic forces, because the friction between the vehicle and the atmosphere, the highest temperature can reach to 2,000 degrees Celsius. So that is a very high temperature. And as Mr. Xu mentioned, we use a heating shield, which use ablative materials. You know that with the ablative material, when it is vaporized by the high temperature, and it can bring the heat away. So the temperature inside the cabin is still in room temperature. But with this measure, although we can effectively reduce the temperature of the vehicle, but the vaporized ablative material will form the plasma shield, which blocks the communication. So that is very dangerous. And also, you know that without the communication, we cannot get the signals of the receivers of the Payload navigation satellite system. So we cannot predict the trajectory of the vehicle very precisely. Although this moment we can still track the vehicle based on the ground readers and also optical telephone.
We just heard a message there saying about having located the target.
It says the Kashgar ground station has captured the signal.
Kashi ground station is at the most westward station, ground station of China. So this means that the Shenzhou spaceship is already very close to the China. Wait, the separation conducted.
Well, we're not getting any images of that, no simulation of that. But
推返
that is
分离正常。
separation of the re-entry capsule and the propulsor, the service module.
Yeah.
Yes, once that separation is occurred, and also the capture of the signal from Kashgar ground station, we know that the capsule is above Pakistan, somewhere in the
Karachi.
神舟16号，我是北京，推返分离正常。
That's
it's a nominal
Beijing
of the
speaking
operation.
to Shenzhou-16 saying that the separation has been normal.
You may notice
发现目标。
we just heard the voice of the dialogue between the commander of the Beijing Flight Control Center and the Shenzhou-16 crew. This means that still at this moment we still have the communication link between the vehicle and
so
the
not
ground.
in the blackout,
But
yeah.
after several minutes, when it touched the
各号注意， 我是北
upper
京
limit of the。
下面
atmosphere,
通报返回舱第2次落点预报。
Okay,
落
the
点
second
经
prediction.
度，东经1洞洞度，
Right, that's
动
what
5
we're hearing
分
right now, the，
动
second
6秒
prediction of，
东
the
经
landing
1洞洞
location.
度，动5
This is from the
分，
Beijing
动6秒
control, the ground
落点纬
control
度
stuff.，
北纬
So with the
是1
separation of
度
the service
3拐
module,
分
we
4
understand
拐
the
秒，
capsule is on its
北
own.
纬
So there's
1 度
nothing, there's
3
no
拐
return,
分
and
4 拐
there's no
秒。
control.
北京
Basically,
第2
not
次落
much
点预报
control
已
that
发
can
出
be done by the capsule itself. It's on a free flow process. Once well, we have just heard the ground station from Dongfeng, which is also in Gansu province, have captured also signals. So that means the capsule is coming back in high speed and high velocity.
To be able to, for
正确，
the
董
ground
事。
stations to be able to locate the space station, it means it's
Just
traveled a
along
long
the
time,
track,
right?
the ground track of
Yeah.
the vehicle.
Basically, it's traveling from Africa, Pakistan, Xinjiang, and then came back to Inner Mongolia. Yes.
At this point, then, the capsule, what kind of a state is it in? It's just free falling, and then
It's already, you know, that it's already only have one module left,
Yeah.
the re-entry capsule. And the more important task for it
黄
now
河
is
双
to
完
keep
成
its attitude. Because when touching the atmosphere, it must in the right attitude to have the heating shield facing the forward.
but how can it do that if it's completely
With
on
very
its own
small
with-
propulsion
Oh, okay, with those
engines
small
on
engines.
board the re-entry capsule.
So this, so
but-
are they adjusting? Would the crew in this capsule be adjusting this right now, or are they just left
I
to
think
their
it's
own
automatic.
devices?
Automatically.
It's automatic.
Actually speaking, okay, we've already seen the deployment of the. Okay,
That's
This
the
is
capsule.
the-
That's the
that we're
re-entry
looking at,
capsule.
right? Yeah.
I think this is the infrared image.
yeah.
So you can see a lot of heatings that they're depleted from the capsule. The
absolutely.
bright part is the capsule itself,
The
and there's
tail,
a
right?
tail of the plasma and
You can see the long
burnings.
trail is the evaporized
heat.
the evaporized ablative materials.
当
This
时
is
跟
from
踪
the-
结束。
This is basically the blackout period. I think they can only track the capsule by the optical and infrared images, not by communication with the crew.
How,
Sao
what
Zhou
kind of
发现目标。
temperature does this get to?
Above 2,000.
About 2,000. What about inside the capsule?
In room temperature.
I managed to keep it at that steady temperature the whole time back.
But
then.
there is
That's pretty
there is an
impressive.
increase in the temperature, and also we know there's a window and also lots of heating.
安西
that
发
comes
现
in,
目标
and you，can
黄
feel
河
it,
跟踪结束
but。you don't get
It
burned
won't,
because
right.
it's just controllable, still controllable.
But they would feel the change in
Yeah, they
temperature.
will feel the temperature changes.
Very bright.
It's like you're very close to an oven or a fire that you can still feel the fire, but you don't
Right,
get
right.
burned. Yes, yeah.
So this blackout stage, how long does this last then normally? We're
A
looking
few
at
minutes. A few minutes.
Usually the period of the blackout period is about 3 to 4 minutes.
3 to 4 minutes, and the astronauts themselves, I mean, we have no connection with them obviously right now. so
Only
it's-
with not communication, but still, as we've already seen this video image, so we can predict the trajectory by this means. And also we have reader, the ground-based reader, to tracking the spacecraft.
I mean, we've talked about this before, but there's always this perception that
双城发现
astronauts
目标
on return will lose consciousness or black out themselves.
回收
But
2 号
most of the
发
time
现
they're
目标。
completely fine on their way back, aren't they? They can
Well, I'm
manage to
sure
stay
that
conscious
Jing
the whole
Haipeng,
time.
as the first time coming back, must be very excited, looking out and communicating with his colleagues.
They can also see the flames outside their window.
Wow.
It's like in the oven, but you're inside the oven.
That can't be too comfortable, but apparently it is for them if they're managing to keep it at steady room temperature. So from now, now that they've entered the blackout zone, from now until touching down, roughly we're looking at how many minutes?
I think after the blackout, there will be a slowdown and deployment of the parachute, and there's a complete process. It depends also on wind speed, and then we have another prediction of the landing site. So quite, I think,
within half an hour.
With less than
that, 20 minutes or even more. So, Professor, you were saying that they're traveling. They need to get the speed down from 8,000 kilometers per second
to about, that's
zero.
just as Mr. Xu mentioned, the deployment of the parachutes, the speed of the reactor capsule is about 200 meters per second, and the altitude is about 10 kilometers high.
So in terms of, to get the speed down, is it a very sort of a steady, slowdown, or is there a sudden slowdown
at some
point?
Let's say there's four ways of slowing down the capsule. First is this using the service module to what we call a brake burn, which is the burning of the engine to slowing down the capsule from 7.9 kilometers per second to a speed where it can start re-entering the Earth.
That's a simulation we saw.
That's a simulation we saw before the separation of the service module. And the second stage is using what we're seeing now, using the atmosphere to drag down and to slow down the capsule so that can reach a speed which is from supersonic to subsonic, so that we can start deploying this the parachute. Because if you are deploying this parachute in supersonic, it will destroy the parachute and also even break down the parachute itself. So using the atmosphere to slow down is second stage, and third one is using that parachute. Fourth one is using the ritual engines at the 2 meters above the Earth. We fire the engine like a pyrotechnics, and then we slow down like a cushioning the capsule down to zero.
And at each stage, when the reduction of speed is being experienced, would the astronauts themselves experience a sudden jolt and a change in speed, or is it fairly imperceptible?
That is called overload, or the G-forces.
Right.
That's the peak value will be about 3.6 G. Which means that the forces you experience is about 3 to 4 times of your own mass, of your own weight. So this is very uncomfortable, but lasts for several half a minute of the peak value. But although in this normal case they only experience the G-forces of about 3.6 times their own mass, but that they must be trained for the emergency re-entry up to 8 G. And moreover, you see that for the pilots and the commanders, they not only have to bear these G-forces, but also do the right operation under these G-forces up to 8 G.
Yes, the human can take up to 12 G. Above that, you die. So it's the maximum that you can take by human body. So there was one return case by the Russian capsule. I was on board. There was a Korean female astronaut, and they came back 11 G. So the astronauts came back, but they survived. And once they were asking how was the return, the lady said it's very smooth.
What you mentioned is Miss Yi Song-Yan. She's also a good friend of mine. But she mentioned she does not feel so fear during the whole process.
But then does it leave you with would it leave the human body with any kind of upsets or any ailments afterwards, after experiencing such a high number of Gs?
That not only these G-forces, but also the intensive vibration during this process. That's the problem. So the astronauts must be trained before their flight missions for the vibration. They will go to the test bed and lying down there and fasten their safety belt and then experience vibration.
我是北京。
But
下面通报返回舱第3次落点预报。落点经度：东经1动动度动5分4两秒，东经1动动度动5分4两秒。落点纬度：北纬41度38分36秒，北纬41度38分36秒。北京第3次落点预报已发出。雄鹰。
And then the main parachute.
Now we're looking at
Yes, I believe this is the main parachute. So the total area of this main parachute is 1,200 square meters.
10公里通。
Very huge.
10公里通，正确，王室。
Very beautiful.
It's all happening very quickly, so we're expecting this to possibly touch down in the next 10 minutes or so.
After deployment of the main parachute,
主伞一打开
there will be no any control of the trajectory. So the landing point will purely depend on the wind. So that's why we need more predictions, because with the forecast of the weather, we can get a precise prediction of the speed of the wind, and then we have a more precise prediction of the landing point.
So we should be able to hear from the astronauts quite soon, right? From inside the capsule. Have already, I don't think we've already
The
had
opening of the hatch can take some time, because once you're there, it's 20 to 30 minutes before they open the hatch.
Oh, that's the report from Mr. Jing Haipeng, the commander.
that was from the, I was wondering, because now that they've exited the blackout zone,
The
we
communication
can hear
link
from
has
them
already
directly.
re-established.
So what kind of a speed are they at now? Is it did you say 200?
They are less than that, about maybe 10 to 20 meters per second, I believe.
So this should be quite a fairly comfortable right now for the astronauts.
You know that the altitude of the Jiuquan satellite launch center is about 1,000 meters high above the sea level. At this moment, still the altitude of the vehicle is several kilometers above that. So the speed is relatively high, and it will de-accelerate continuously. And just before the landing, it will be about 6 to 8 meters per second.
What does that feel like for, if you put it into kind of very layman terms?
Let's say a skydiver. If you jump off the plane, it's like a separation of the service module. And then you have a free fall, which is like a blackout.
Right.
And then there is the deployment of this parachute. It's similar to this whole process. Then you're landing back to Earth. It's from very high speed down to the parachute, then you open and you're slowing down and drifting down. It's like riding a balloon.
You can see Shenzhou-17 crew is watching the live coverage inside the Dongfeng space station.
So they went out there last.
We are watching
last
the live
Tuesday,
coverage
was it?
of China Central Television.
That's right.
On the 26th.
On the 26th.
6公里空，
So they spent only really 5 days.
Already
in space with each
below
other
6
together.
kilometers high. And the next step, they will release all the propellants inside the tanks of the re-entry capsule. You know that we use hydrogen as the propellant for the control of the re-entry capsule. It is called a monopropulsion system. Because the hydrogen is toxic, so we must release all the hydrogen out to ensure the safety.
When they're picking the return date, and Professor Yang, you were telling me earlier about when we were talking about why this mission was 5 months as opposed to 6. I mean, obviously the weather, the conditions are all very important. But picking the exact day for return, what are some of the factors that they have to think about this, and perhaps the natural factors?
You may notice each time we have this live coverage in a different time. This is because you know that a basic requirement is that the re-entry can only conduct when the landing site is passing through the orbital plane of the Shenzhou-16.
The closest distance.
So we don't have other choices. We just can only conduct at this moment.
So once the landing date, once that moment is determined, there's just really no adjustments to the landing date.
And
the window's not very flexible.
the answer of your question is that you know that we hope that we can conduct a faster return only for several hours, because it will be very more convenient for our astronaut.
Right.
So the position when the landing site is passing through the orbital plane, across the orbital plane, is also very important. So it must be in a certain position in its orbit. So not every day we have this condition. So the day also should be carefully chosen.
Let's say they landed. Let's say they picked. So today obviously would have been the closest distance, but let's say it was delayed till tomorrow. How much longer would that journey be potentially coming back?
As I mentioned, that depends on the position in orbit, where it is in the orbit when the landing site passing across the orbital plane of the Shenzhou spaceship. And for different day, it's different.
But if you have enough fuel on board, you can adjust your orbit. That can still make it back to Earth, but it's a different process.
But theoretically speaking, they have a window to go back every day.
No, there is every day.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So then, weather conditions. Then it doesn't matter if it's a little foggy or a little hazy, but what sort of conditions would be very dangerous then?
Windy.
that will be influence the ground teams. Maybe that will be more impact to the ground teams. But for the astronauts, there
Not a
is no
problem.
essential difference.
So rain
but
or
the wind
storms,
is a
none of
very
that is a big
important
issue.
factor. As you can see, the whole vehicle together with the parachute is waving. So that is influence of the wind. Also influence the
蒙氏军长
actual coordinate of the landing point.
So it makes it a little bit more unpredictable.
北京明白
in that sense, I guess.
And at this moment, we should monitor the whole.
what's
That's a
that they're
release. That's a
releasing
release of the propellant. You can see the smoke is the released vaporized propellant inside the tanks of the propulsion system.
How much propellant would be left in the capsule at this point before it released it?
Much little than the those in the propulsion module, because we only need to change the attitude of the reentry capsule with this propulsion, very small monopropulsion system. And also there
神舟
will be
16号，我是北京。
jettisoning of the heating main
回
heating
返回舱
heating
即将
shield.
着陆东风着陆场预定位置。
I
We're
believe
hearing
also
Beijing ground
at
control,
this
they're
moment
speaking
or
to
later
Shenzhou-16.
there will be a raising of the chairs.
So we just heard a message there from the ground control to Shenzhou-16 preparing to touch.
This is already a
北京明白。
relative relaxed moment for the astronauts.
One thing to watch out at this moment is whether the capsule is landing at the vertical position or horizontal, because then the opening is going to be on top or on the side. So that also, because it's like, the parachute is on top of the capsule.
Yeah.
And once it's coming down, sometimes it's tipped over. Sometimes it's landed upright.
But at some point they have to shed the parachute as well, don't they? As soon as it touches down,
The
it
cutting
has to
the
be
parachute,
severed,
this
right?
operation is charged by Mr. Zhu Yangzhu, which is called 02. This is always done by 02, because you know that there is a button just close to him.
Okay.
So as Mr. Xu mentioned, the most optimized one happened during the Shenzhou-16 mission and the Shenzhou-13 mission. Mr. Jing Haipeng and Ms. Wang Yaping conduct this very perfectly. So they cut the parachute at the right moment, so make it possible for the landing, the touchdown vertically. And so you know that.
So does that mean that it should be severed before they actually touch down,
Just,
or is it at
yes.
the moment? Of
The
touching
moment
Yeah.
the cutting
Moment.
down is very
Moment of
important.
touching down.
So only in these two missions we achieved a vertical touchdown.
and
you know
that's
that
the most ideal.
a vertical touchdown will be more convenient for the astronauts.
Because astronauts sitting
Upright,
upright,
yeah.
and if you're landing on the side, it's going to be leaning forward.
Right, right.
Or either landing on
Or on their side,
On the
yeah.
side, yes.
And obviously, it wouldn't be ideal if they landed with the hatchet sort of pointing down. But is that
Then
possible?
it's never happened, but it's going to be
possible as well.
a big rescue team.
But in
Yeah.
most cases, as Mr. Xi mentioned, in most cases they will touch down in a horizontal attitude, because you know the reason is because you know that during the reentry we need some control, and the principle is that the center of mass of the reentry capsule have some deviation from the symmetrical axis of the vehicle. So usually it will line down.
Right. So did you say it's happened twice for China's
yeah, only
manned
twice.
mission? Only twice. The Shenzhou, which ones? Were
Because
they?
the button,
13 and
Shenzhou-6
6.
and the Shenzhou-13.
And
because-
one thing to look out at this moment is the firing of the ritual engine. That is just 2 meters above the Earth. So you'll see a big plum of smoke coming down from the bottom of the capsule. That is normal because it's the firing of the ritual engine.
Okay. So that capsule, we can see that it is completely charred on the outside.
Yeah, it's on the
from
one
the-
side it has to be very charged, yes.
On just the one side?
Yeah, because it's coming back in an angle. So one side has more frictions than the other.
And you know that this is a main parachute. In fact, we also have another backup parachute.
Right.
If anything wrong happens to the main parachute, we can use the backup parachute to ensure the safety landing of our astronauts.
But that's never happened before.
It never happened before.
Surviving the landings.
We hope that never happens.
No. Are we looking at the more charred side of the capsule right now? Looks very-
Yes, the picture is getting very clear, so
Yeah,
it means very close
very-
to the ground.
Should be expecting it to touch down in
Couple of
five,
minutes,
6
yes.
minutes. Yeah,
Yeah.
5 minutes maybe.
Even less than that, I think.
They must be very excited right now coming home. What would their state be right now? I mean, they have passed some of the most difficult.
I think they're very relaxed at this moment because they know they're safe now. It's already passing through the most dark moment.
They can put the manuals down as well now at this point, right? Or do they still have to be looking
they have
at this?
a manual to open the hatch. Before that, there's a couple of operations.
But as I mentioned, Mr. Zhu Yangzhu will be in charge of cutting the
Releasing
parachute. So this is an important moment for him.
So he can't relax yet.
Yeah.
Like Professor Yang mentioned, there's a gamma ray altimeter, so that is very radioactive. So the rescue team has to avoid the bottom side of the capsule to avoid radiation contaminations.
They have a lead cover. They have a lead cover to block the radiation.
What sort of distance would they be from Earth right now?
I think it's a few hundred meters. I think even
A few hundred meters only.
Yeah.
A few hundred meters
So
only, they'll be
we
dropping
can
down
see this
very soon.
video taken from the camera mounted on the,
helicopter.
Yeah.
So it's
Okay,
already
so
at
it's
the
already very
helicopter
close.
altitude.
Right,
Yes.
right. So the rescue routine would be the helicopter gets there first, spots it, locates
Usually,
it, and then the ground teams
Because
then
it's
come.
faster than the ground vehicles.
Right.
At this moment, I believe that the chairs of the three astronauts have already been raised to the right position
and that
to
cushions their
dump the
landing.
energy of impact.
And I mean, coming back from them, it's still going to be a long time before they're able to get back to their normal lives, right? I mean, we're talking about a few months
They
of
need-
recovery.
they need some adjustment, yes.
Very long procedure for recovery.
You see that the picture that we seen a couple of days ago, the two crews met, and Jing Haipeng has a very swollen face.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Shenzhou-16
that happens when you're exposed to extensively microgravity environment. Your body fluid, get confused whether it's going to flow, and you stay extensively longer in outer space. You lose a lot of bone mass, and your cardiovascular system changes. And your blood flow and water flow in your body changes also. Your immune system sometimes changes. So it takes longer to, at least a couple of months to get back to get used to the gravity.
回收1号跟踪结束。
It's like a slowing process. One of the astronauts from US, he said to me that he went to a foot massage after 800 days, 300
各号
days
注
in
意
outer space.
我是北
They
京
say he
下
has
面
the
通报
most
返
soft
回舱
foot.
第4次落点预
They
报
have
落点经
Soft
度
foot.
东经1动动
Don't
度
use the
东6 分
false
48秒落点纬度北纬41度38分35秒北京第4次落点预报已发出
Calculations there for
雄鹰
the fourth would be the final landing point.
Yeah, and then
This is what
the
it-
crews are, the vehicles, the helicopter are rushing to the site and ready to search and rescue.
And the wind speed is also considered.
正确
The
某
influence
事
of the wind speed.
because that might carry them off to somewhere else. How big of a area would this fourth prediction be for the landing? Oh, there
I
they
see
are.
there's,
They're almost.
it's going to be a ritual
they just
firing.
touched down.
Well, we saw
Okay, we can see the work of the rocket's
Yeah, the
motors.
heat there would be the fire.
Then there's a cutting of the parachute.
北京雄鹰4号，
So what do you think? Would be vertical or horizontal?
Vertical.
So we will see the result very
Beijing
Let's
Relax.
bet on it. There's still some wind. You can see the parachute is drifting on the side,
Yes.
and also the
Dongfeng
smoke.
was
So
Beijing.
Yeah,
yes,
the
I believe it's
smoke.
already successfully cut
东
down.
风到，北京请讲。
They are home.
北京第4次落点预报已发出，后续由东风按计划组织搜救回收工作。
Ground team also has arrived.
东风明白。各号注意，
Are you able
我
to
是
see the
东
ground
风
teams in the
返回
in the
舱已
center?
着陆
I'm having trouble.，
请雄鹰猛士按计划组织搜救行动。雄鹰。
Xuying, that's the
雄鹰明白。
Helicopter
Helicopter
right?
team.
That's
猛
the
士
name of
猛
it.
士。猛士明
It
白。
belongs to the ground team.
The
And
Eagle
this
team.
is probably from the helicopter camera that we're seeing right now, right? I think it looks like the helicopter's landing. We're seeing.
Yeah, this is the helicopter image of from the top.
东风雄鹰4
We
号
still，don't have an image of the capsule itself yet.
雄鹰
No,
讲。
not close up.
雄鹰已在现场降落，返回舱呈倾倒状态，主伞已脱落，
It's on
着
site.
陆进行尾翼搁置，报告完毕。
It's
You will
lying
see the
down.
sound. It's lying down.
It's taking a rest.
so we can really see the vertical landing.
So it has to be a very, very precise moment when
With
they,
even no
when they
wind
detach
at all.
it. So, I mean, the wind might also blow the capsule over, or is it just the drag from the parachute?
It's a little bit drag, but also if you see that the attaching point of the parachute is also on, make the capsule a little bit sideways.
Right.
It's not on really top of it.
And I mean, the parachute, it's also really critical that they do sever it straight away, right? Otherwise, that could cause the capsule.
If you haven't cut off the parachute, it will drag the re-entry capsule because of the wind. We can still remember during the during the Shenzhou 10 mission, because the parachute has not been cut down, so it dragged the vehicle for almost 100 meters.
Oh wow! You can see the crew is reaching the capsule there, so they have to be very careful, right, Mr. Xu? You were saying to avoid the bottom side.
Yeah,
of
well, they have procedures that they have to follow. That which there are a number of crews, medical crews and hatch open crews, the technical supporting teams, all of these has to follow a procedure. Some people have to set up the parameter,
right.
Where is it is forbidden, where is it to be, inviting different crews to come approach and close to the capsule itself.
And the capsule, the outside of the capsule, there's also the potential of toxic gases and
as I mentioned, they've already released all the propellants inside the tank. So maybe there is a small amount of that, not a big threat.
So they won't need to have to.
But as Mr. Xu mentioned, the radiation comes from the gamma ray altimeter will be a big matter. So you may notice that every time during the recovery, before we block the radiation with the lead cover, usually the ground team does not go to the not facing the bottom of the vehicle directly.
Right. But the sides of the vehicle is okay.
Yeah.
So you see more crews approaching the capsule right now.
From the hatch side.
It's a good side. It's very. Is that the smoke, presumably,
Hazy.
that
I
we're
think
seeing?
probably it's from the helicopters or others.
It looks like almost 10 people that are gathering around the capsule.
Just several weeks before return, the Shenzhou-16 crew just enhanced their physical exercise every day.
Yeah, what sort of exercises would that involve?
Such as the treadmill to run inside station, and also the space bicycle and other exercise measures to strengthen their muscles and to readapt with the gravity.
Is that a very different sort of set of exercise from what they would routinely do in the space station?
It's different because that they stay there for 5 months. During the ordinary cases, they don't have a certain schedule, but as I mentioned, just several weeks before their return, they will pay more time on this exercise.
Because 5 months they don't have to use their muscle. I mean, everything, they're floating, sleeping, they're floating, working, they're floating, everything. So their muscle is substantially lost. If you don't use the muscle for 6 weeks, you lose your muscles.
So these astronauts, they'd all experience a lot of weight loss, would they, upon coming back?
They basically stretch a little bit. I mean, they grow higher because there's
Yes.
Oh,
they'll go back to their normal height.
That's a good benefit of of space journey, no?
That's during the interview, Mr. Jettison, the commander of the Shenzhou-16 crew, mentioned that you will feel uncomfortable even with the softest bed. Because with the influence of gravity, it's not so comfortable like sleep in outer space.
Sleeping in microgravity environment is the most comfortable way of sleeping. You're basically floating. There's no touching part from anywhere.
That sounds interesting. Maybe one day that can be.
But you have to just attach yourself to certain panels or boards or your own cabins. Otherwise, you're floating around. You could be bumping.
We can see the ground staff is already near the hatch. I believe they are trying to open the hatch.
So we've got medical teams also standing by. So with the last landing that we saw, there were medical vans, but one for each of the astronauts.
Exactly. You see that the different ground staff very different clothes in different colors.
Red, blue, black.
So some belongs to the astronaut system, in charge of the medical issues, and to take care of the astronauts.
Would that be the ones in blue and white?
Yes, and possibly. And some where the other colors, some belongs to the spaceship system. The spaceship system will be in charge of the, for instance, as we discussed, to manage the re-entry capsule, to block the radiation and other operations.
But it's good weather. I mean, temperature-wise and everything. So they are going to prepare 3 chairs for the 3 astronauts, ready at the gate of the hatch, and then they will. I mean, the astronaut has to. More or less came out by their own, but after 5 months of exposing to microgravity environment, they're very weak.
Right.
So they have to be quickly moved to the chair, and they don't have to make a major movement. I think at this moment, the astronauts in the capsule feel their weight now back to Earth. Everything is very heavy.
They get lifted out, but then they can walk. Right?
They can, but
they can stand. It's just difficult
because their bone mass has lost substantially in outer space. So the bones and muscles cannot, support very flexible movement at this moment.
So from now, from after they leave the capsule, they'll be lifted and then taken to the little medical vans waiting for them. And then at what point? Usually, how long would it be before they're able to walk by themselves again, or when it's considered safe for them to walk by themselves?
Usually after several weeks, after readaptation to the gravity.
So the next few weeks, they'll be bedbound.
At this moment, usually in most cases, they are lying down in bed to ensure that, as Mr. Xu mentioned, the possible breaking of their bones.
So I have a question then. If they are bedbound for the next few weeks, how then do they regain muscle strength?
Not exactly bedbound all the time. They have to go through a rehabilitation process. Like once you had an operation, you have to recover, and you have to go do exercise.
And enhance their tolerance to stand up.
Take medicines.
So they'll be opening the hatch, and we should be seeing the order of their exit. It'll be the commander first.
And
so
at this moment, the medical team will help the astronauts to readapt the gravity environment.
So I think the people in blue and white trousers could be from the China Aerospace Science Technology Corporation. They're the manufacturer of the capsule, and they have a technical supporting team to operate and open the hatch. And they know which screw to unwise and which way to touch.
You may compare of the person with the size of the re-entry capsule. It's really small for three persons inside, and even they are wearing IVA spacesuits.
If you just look at there's 3 or 4 of them gathered at the hatch of the capsule already. They're kind of blocking half of it, so very little space. So what?
You can still see that nobody on the bottom side of the capsule. So there's still, as Professor Yang mentioned, there's somebody who's going to use a radioactive blocking cap to cover the radiations.
We haven't seen anyone do that just yet.
I think the priority at this moment is the rescue of the astronauts.
Well, someone just went around the back of the capsule. I mean, with such a small space, I mean, they have, so the hatch is opening now. And they're bringing out Commander.
Not only our 3 heroes, but also the valuable samples returned from space.
Exactly, that's exactly what I was going to ask. It's such a small space, but they have to bring some, food and water for themselves, presumably some of their own personal belongings.
Yeah,
and
not much food and water because they're coming back in only 11 hours. So
that's true, but they have to make provisions in case, though, right? If they're somewhere hostile.
Very compact, survival kits, and also even including a raft and many other facilities, and the experiments results and samples back from outer space.
So it really isn't much space at all. What sort of samples do you think they'll be bringing back? What do you hope they'll be bringing back?
That for the space biology and the space medicine, they have a lot of samples back to the Earth. Moreover, this time, that we also have all the material making experiments on board the Tiangong space station, including the the rack without contact to the material, just use laser to heating up the material to about 3,000 Celsius degrees. And we can with the gravity environment, we can make all kind of very perfect sphere in sphere shapes the materials. And also we have other material making, including the crystal of proteins, and also the material made in a very high temperature. So this kind of study has already been conducted since Shenzhou-16 and Shenzhou-14 mission. So this time we can continuously see this kind of research. Moreover, you know that in some cases their own body of the 3 astronauts are also being studied for space medicine purposes. For instance, some blood samples and other samples.
So it's taken quite a while for them to bring the astronauts out, right, since they opened the hatch. Is that because they're also doing some preliminary medical checkups inside the capsule at this stage? I mean, it's been minutes.
At this moment, the ground team, especially the medical team, medical care from the astronaut system, will checking the right status of our 3 astronauts.
I mean, their health conditions are being monitored all the time. I mean,
Right.
even heart rate and blood pressures and everything. So they can receive all the data even out of the blackout, and they have the parameters and the astronaut safeties. So they're currently basically working on the hatch itself because you can see the side of the black burn, the charted part, and also the part that has not been burned so extensively. So the metal has been exposed to high temperatures. And there's some tight points and tight structures that needs to be physically opened for the hatch.
Right.
It's not so easy because it was originally attached to the orbital module.
Will the capsule now still be hot to the touch, or will they have lost all the temperature?
I think it's basically more or less loss of all the temperatures,
Right.
because it has been exposed to atmosphere underneath the parachute for about more than 10 minutes. So it's also the friction on the carbon is not creating heat, only on metal, so it didn't capped all the heat on the capsule itself.
So it's safe for the crew
One
then.
important step to make the result, as Mr. Xu mentioned, is the jettisoning of the heating shield after the deployment of the parachute. That after the deployment of the parachute, we just jettison the heating shield because the temperature is too high. More important is to expose the gamma ray altimeter and the 4 retro rocket to the outer environment to make it possible to deaccelerate the vehicle to the safety landing touchdown speed.
You see on the left side is the opening of the one small hatch, which is they used to pack the parachute inside. So you can see that the hatch has been opened and has been used on the left side, left bottom side. Yes.
That is the chamber for the main parachute.
Yeah.
I mean, it will take them a few months to rehabilitate, to recover, and then is it likely that these astronauts will go straight back into training and get ready for the next one?
We may notice that Mr. During the handover, from between the Shenzhou-17 crew and the 16 crew, Mr. Tang Hongbo has the shortest interval between 2 flight missions.
That's right, and he's the first one to return as well,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
He's the first one to return our Tiangong space station. But you know that based on the standard of the other countries, Mr. Jing Haipeng of this mission.
熊鹰奖，
So we're hearing from the search crew right
航天员
now.
身体状态检查正常，报告完毕。
Great.
Yeah, they've just announced there that the astronauts are in good health condition, physical condition. That's from the search crew there. So how long was the interval for Mr. Tang going up again? From when he
About
first
2
went?
years. He also makes this record.
2 years, that's pretty short.
Pretty short for 2 flight missions. You know that.
So he was the first one into the space station,
Yeah.
right? And then now he's returned
He's
again.
first crew.
Yeah.
And you know that Mr. Jing Haipeng, based on the standards of other countries, he is one to have entered 3 space stations: Tiangong 1, Tiangong 2, and this Tiangong space station. Because although we categorize our Tiangong 1 and Tiangong 2 as space laboratories, but in other countries they also categorize that also as very small space stations.
There's something else interesting as well. So when the Shenzhou-17 successfully launched, the space program already had the Shenzhou-18 ready to go, right?
Yeah.
So why is that? Why is it so fast and without
actually
any break?
speaking, the combination of the Shenzhou-18 spaceship together with the Long March 2F Y-18 rocket, the combination is act as the emergency rescue standing by combination of rocket and the Shenzhou spaceship. If anything wrong happens, because you know that the Shenzhou-17 crew stayed in orbit for half a year, so anything can happen during this half a year duration. So if anything wrong happen, if the Shenzhou-17 spaceship is not feasible for the safety return of the crew, so the Shenzhou-18 will be launched.
现在我这个位置的距离返回舱呢只有大概10米左右。目前呢，我们航天员中心的一间医保医生，
So it's what we call redundancy. You know, it's for life of people. You have people on board the station. You have a hiccup of the 17th, and you can quickly replace that with 18. So still the crew can come back.
And is that pretty standard practice?
Yes, it's
internationally?
normal practice.
Because there has been scenarios before where I read that there had been a problem up at the at a different space station, and the ground team, they weren't prepared like they are now. So it took them a year before the next crew was able to get up there.
Internationally, it's not the practice. It's only the Chinese practice.
落点测量完毕，返回舱落点坐标，东京幺洞
They're
洞
just
组
announcing the precise landing spot right now of the capsule, the Shenzhou-16 crew.
The real coordinates, the final coordinate of the landing point is announced now.
You can see that all the calculation has been collected, so the scientific community of the rocket designers can recalculate, and then this is one experience gain again after 17 landings, so that we can know in the future where the capsule might land in a precise location.
Exactly, this is a very good reference for the future missions.
Absolutely. And to me, it just sounds like a bunch of numbers, but of course, for the scientists, this is all very important data, isn't it?
To optimize the re-entry procedure in the future. So this is a very good reference and very helpful for our researchers.
And to pinpoint a more precise location, like factoring in wind speed, all this.
This you can see from this mission that the crew came very quickly.
Yeah, that was very quick. Yeah.
Yeah, within minutes. Yeah. So
But
this
I mean,
is
that's pretty standard now, isn't it,
It's
for the
pretty
crew to
impressive,
reach
yes.
the space capsule? We should be
You
expecting
may
to see
see
the
there
captain
is no
come out any minute.
exception. That every time we can take the video of the moment of touchdown with the smoke of the retro rockets.
What's the difference from the first manned return? You know, the first capsule that returned from this one.
Well, Mr. Yang Liwei introduced the moment that you know that during the re-entry of Mr. Yang Liwei in October the 16th, 2003, he mentioned that because we don't have experience before, so it's already lost of control because everybody is so excited. Although we have isolation area, but everybody rushed inside and even raised Mr. Yang Liwei up. So, because you know that this is the first time that the Chinese fulfill the Millennium Dream to go to outer space. So everybody have great emotion, very very exciting on that.
Yeah, the level of
we can understand that.
is so different. Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, now it's very routine. We're happy and excited that they're back, but it's just expected that it will go well, right?
Yeah, I believe that the next time we have this moment will be the return of our astronauts from the moon.
That would definitely be
the only way
exciting.
stayed only
21 hours.
21 hours in orbit. So there's no major mass loss of muscles and bones, no major changes in the body.
Yeah.
And also, we had 5 missions before the Shenzhou, the Yang Liwei mission, because those were experimental missions that was conducted even before we sent a man to space. So we have to be very reliable on the system itself. The capsule has not changed, as you mentioned, for the past 2 decades. But we're designing a new generation crew capsule that enables us to put 7 people on board at the same time.
Wow.
So
the new generation.
Yeah, new generation has been tested and ready to be used in the future. with the new generation launch vehicle.
7 people, that number of people, is that designed for a reason? I mean, 3 is the basic that's needed, right?
This is very helpful for our future study. You know that for any ascending or launch or the return, we require at least 2 of the astronauts has a capability to piloting the ship.
Right.
So they must be trained for this and use a lot of time. With 7 crew members, which means that we can have more scientists and engineers only dedicated to scientific research. That will be more efficient for us to clarify any scientific research on board Tiangong space station.
So 7 is just at the moment the maximum that it's possible.
At this moment, and also for interplanetary missions, also we can have more crews on board, and also, for example, we have ambitions to land on the surface of the moon in the coming decade. So that also can be useful for either moon maneuver in the low Earth orbit and also for deep space exploration.
The more the merrier.
Yes.
Especially if they're going on such long journeys.
Exactly.
Mr. Yang Liwei has already mentioned during the interview that the future lunar human missions, the astronauts must already have the experience to stay in our Tiangong space station first. So this is a very important criteria for our training of astronauts. So I believe that why is the reason we choose so many, such a young crew for the Shenzhou-17 mission. You know, that's the total number only 34 and 35 years old. So because they are so young, so in the future they are experienced and become veterans after this Shenzhou-17 mission. So in the future, it is also possible for them to be chosen for the lunar missions.
We're going to hear from the Shenzhou-16 crew now.
The astronauts will report by themselves.
That's right. So let's see. We'll hear from them any minute.
I think hatch has been opened.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been seeing the search crew, the rescue crew, and go in.
Yeah.
You can see that the Jiuqian satellite launch center is very, the sky is very clear in a very beautiful
it's much
blue
better
color.
Than earlier. I mean, 20 years, right? 20 years since the first...
20 years anniversary of the first manned mission.
And so much has changed. And if you look at just the last few landings that I've seen, it's all so controlled. You know, every stage is so controlled and almost so predictable as well.
Yeah. We have already formed a very standard routine. This.
I mean, Yang Liwei, when he first went up there, he was saying on the way there, the space capsule was just vibrating, shaking, you know, incredibly, right? That was such
especially during the launch.
Yeah.
Because we don't have much experience at that moment. So at Mr. Yang Liwei's first mission, we just optimized the launch process, especially control of the control system to avoid the vibration.
Because he said it was terrifying. It was incredibly uncomfortable for him.
He almost, you know, that Mr. Yang Liwei mentioned later that he almost thought he will lose his life during that moment.
And probably not just him, the entire ground control, everybody is just holding their breath.
Because of the launch vehicle is designed in such a way it accelerates, also provides gravity, you know, like 3 or 4 G forces. And then there's a movement of the rocket on a vertical movement, what we call a pogo. It's like the jog that you mentioned, that it's going up and down, up and down. So that is, you know, Professor Yang mentioned the vibration. It's not, you know, different direction, but also up and down. So that makes it very uncomfortable for the astronauts.
So then to compare that 20 years ago to what these astronauts are experiencing now on their way up, it's a huge difference.
We can simulate the vibration and we can simulate the G forces, but we cannot simulate it simultaneously on the ground. So that's a problem.
Oh, okay. So in training,
that is the reason why Mr. Yang Liwei feels so uncomfortable during that moment.
And is that still not simulatable now? Can they do that now?
You cannot, because it's too difficult for the ground facilities.
So when these astronauts train and prepare for this, they just go through the 2 motions separately and try and imagine what it's like together.
But honestly speaking, we can simulate more intensive G forces up to 8G. To dealing with the abnormal cases.
So not only are we more technologically advanced, but these astronauts themselves are far more prepared now to go up to space than before, mentally and physically.
So maybe the normal procedure is not so challenging, not so uncomfortable for the astronaut, but the training of the emergency cases is very tough for them.
Yeah, I mean, there's massive advancements in just the last 20 years. And next stage, the moon.
We heard
I
from
think
the
that's-
astronauts.
They're saying they feel well. We just had a message there from the
北京明白
Astronaut Statements saying that we've safely landed. We
祝
feel well.
贺神
See
舟
you in
16
Beijing.
号，你们辛苦了，向你们致以崇高的敬意。我们在北京迎接你们凯旋。
And there's the ground staff congratulating them on their return, and
My
sending
friend,
their
Commander
regards
Jing
and
Haipeng,
respect.
just report his status with his, the Shanxi accent.
Couldn't really hear it.
And now the unbuckling of the safety belt of the Commander-in-Chief.
Yeah. That since the the Shenzhou-16 mission, because that Mr. Jing Haipeng comes from Shanxi province, and we prepared more vinegar for him.
Of course, their first meal, they must be really looking forward to this. But since their bodies are readjusting to Earth
Gravity.
and the gravity environment, does that mean that the first things that they eat, should there be more care put into what they eat, or is it okay? Can they just eat anything
It's
they
also
like?
carefully chosen
Yeah.
for their first meal.
So they can't be picking spicy Sichuan hot pot or anything like that
but-
for their first
but
That
meal.
depends.
But whatever they eat there it's going to be tasting very good, because space food is
Bland.
very challenging because it's experience everyone have. Once you're flying on board a plane, the food on the plane tastes differently compared with the food on Earth. So they're coming back for some earthly.
Yeah, because the taste buds are much more dulled, right, up
Yeah.
in space.
But that Mr. Ye Guangfu of the Shenzhou-16 mission, he comes from Sichuan province. I believe that it's okay for him to have any spicy food.
So we're not too worried about their digestive systems, only their physical.
Yeah, because
muscles.
the body flow is upside down. Then your taste bud is different.
Right.
Even in outer space, you taste things differently.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Even the same thing.
Because the redistribution of your blood in your body, so your tongues will be less sensitive compared with that on the ground.
Because all the food that they have up at the space station that's brought by all these cargo ships, they're all just pre-prepared. You just heat them up and they're ready to eat, right? All the
Yeah,
food.
and
So
also
they are
like a
fond of
paste.
more salty
Like
food.
pastes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because in
Sounds
microgravity
delicious.
environment, you don't have crumbles and things you can flow around and damage the facility. It has to be like either holdable or squeezable. Something it cannot go out of control.
So what sort of foods then are we talking about? I'm finding it hard to imagine paste as
Frozen,
a meal.
quick frozen things and things like you put in like a toothpaste, but it squeeze out. But you do have things like pancakes and apples, because they don't.
Oh, they can eat fresh fruit.
They
They
have.
have apples.
Okay.
And also some grissini.
Otherwise, paste for 5 months, 6 months, that could be enough to deter certain people.
The Tianzhou-16 cargo spacecraft brought 70 kilograms of fresh
Paste.
fruit,
Oh, that's good.
fresh fruit to them.
But what about fresh vegetables? Is that something that they also have access to?
They can plant these vegetables now.
Well, if you're just tuning in, which I'm sure you're not, because this has been a very exciting journey back, the Shenzhou-16 re-entry capsule has touched down at the Dongfeng landing site in China's Inner Mongolia Autonomous Region. And the 3 taikonauts are ready to exit the capsule. We've been waiting for them to come out for the last few minutes, and that marks the completion of their 5-month mission. And the medical examination shows that the 3 taikonauts are all in good health, and we heard the reports from the commander himself earlier, saying that they are well and they're waiting to see everyone back in Beijing. So this mission, to recap, was launched on May 30th, 2023. And we have Commander Jing Haipeng, Yangzhu, and Haichao. And they went to China's Tiangong space station, this stage, for 154 days in orbit. That's about 5 months. And during this time, they conducted multiple key tasks, including large-scale in-orbit tests and experiments. And they also carried out some EVAs, so extravehicular activities, and conducted space station maintenance. And any minute now, we should be seeing these astronauts leave the capsule that they've been on for now more than 12 hours. They left at 8:37 p.m. Beijing time, so almost exactly 12 hours ago. a long journey home.
You know that the inside volume of the Shenzhou spaceship, as we already seen, is very, very narrow. The total volume of the sum of the volume of the re-entry capsule and the orbital module is only 7 cubic meters. Very small volume.
I mean, you can really see it when you look at the image now, compare the humans.
To make our astronauts more comfortable, so we just greatly shortened the whole process of return to about 2 days to only several hours today.
What's the record return time? Do you know? And this one was just under 12 hours.
This one is about 6 to 8 hours. It is an ordinary case.
6 to 8 hours, and they detached. They separated at 8:37.
Just from the separation to the station to the landing, maybe longer. But you know that this also depends on what I mentioned, the position or orbit of the Tiangong space station comparing with the relative position to the landing site. So you know that it will be different for each day. So if we return tomorrow, it will be a different interval. That depends on the position in orbit. And also, you know that.
But each time the position is chosen for its closest distance.
Exactly, because you know that we don't have other choices. Only when the landing site is passing through the orbital plane of our Tiangong space station, with only this moment we can conduct the return procedure. Or we will land in a different place, at least 2,000 kilometers from it.
What's China's capability now in terms of this journey back? I mean, what's the kind of longest journey that it can make in terms of carrying the fuel and all the supplies?
Actually speaking, for unmanned missions, the longest return is from the moon. During the Chang'e 5 mission, we returned just from 380,000 kilometers away. That is an unmanned one. For these Tiangong missions, you know that before our launch of the Tiangong 2 space laboratory, usually we conduct the space missions at the altitude of about 343 kilometers high. And with the Tiangong 2 missions, since that moment in 2016, we just raised the altitude to 393 kilometers high. So usually the Tiangong space station orbiting the Earth can up to about 450 kilometers high. That depends on which phase it is in, because you know that it uses its propulsion system, including its electric propulsion system, to keep its altitude every day. So this time we return from the, as Mr. Xu mentioned, maybe from the altitude about 390 kilometers.
97, yes.
And in the future, you know that as we've already discussed, for the lunar missions, we must return from the moon. And when the spacecraft is close to the Earth, the speed can reach about 11 kilometers per second, close to the second cosmic velocity. So that will be a very great challenge to conduct the protection from the high temperature. That will be more challenging compared with the return from the low Earth orbit, about several hundred kilometers high.
So the temperature would be even higher than
even
what
higher.
The burn
And we use the atmosphere to drag it, you know, like a bouncing on the atmosphere, and then
skid re-entry.
Skid re-entry.
Yes,
it bounces once on the atmosphere before landing, and then come back again. So it's slowing down with the air of the Earth.
And how would that experience differ then for the astronauts?
Well, we have never done that before, because the astronauts, so far we have flown only 400 kilometers above the Earth. Longest duration, 6 months. And the plan is to put, you know, the humanity has landed on the surface of the moon, which is 380,000 kilometers away.
Massive difference.
Yeah, and also we are planning to do that by end of this decade, so to send astronauts there and then came back safely. That's going to be the experiencing of the bouncing of the astronauts, because that has been conducted by the sample return mission of Chang'e 5, which is using the capsule and bouncing on the Earth's surface, and then came back in a lower velocity.
What sort of time frame do you expect that will be then, this return?
2030. We just according to the formal announcement of the China Manned Space Agency, we will conduct our first human landing to the moon before 2030. Moreover, another important fact just announced by the China Manned Space Agency by Mr. Lin Xiqiang, the Deputy Chief Director of China Manned Space Agency, we formally invite the foreign astronauts to attend our human missions to the moon. So we can see in the future the Chinese astronauts together with the foreign astronauts walk on the moon together. You see that the human landing, the crewed lander of our future lunar missions, we can have 2 crew members to land on the moon. The other stay in the orbit with the new generation manned spaceship. So with the 2 astronauts walk on the moon, one can be from China and the other from the other country. So that's very, hopefully we can see that scene in the future.
But incidentally, there's an international initiative called Artemis, which is led by US NASA, was also participated by more than 20 country plus. That is the idea is to build what we call a space gateway, which is a international space station on the lunar velocity, size lunar orbit. So that is going to be human-attended lunar orbiting and landing. Also, they have set a goal of boots on the moon by 2024 or 2025. So that is also something going on at the same time as with the Chinese ambition.
How long would the journey to the moon take for manned?
There's a direct trajectory, but basically a week.
A week
there. 3 days to go outbound and 3 days to go inbound. So we need to stay in the lunar transfer orbit for 3 days, and then maybe conduct 1 day to orbiting the moon and land on the moon, and then go back for another 3 days. So that is a very typical 7 to 8 days for a single trip to the moon. But if you, for instance, during the Apollo 17 mission, because the astronauts stay on the moon surface for about 3 days, so they stay longer, about maybe 9 to 10 days for the whole mission.
That seems that seems unimaginable to me. I mean, then these astronauts coming home in just 12 hours. Well, it's since the separation, compared to 3 days.
Especially that stay in the so small volume for so many days.
But of course, then a journey to the moon, it would be a very different kind of rocket and capsule system, right?
That's only with the moon mission the astronaut can see the shape of the Earth is a sphere. That's, as we already discussed, either our Tiangong spaceship, either those spacecraft from other countries orbiting in the low Earth orbit, they cannot see the Earth as a sphere. They can only see that the horizon is a curvature, because that the diameter of the Earth is more than 12,000 kilometers. So only with the altitude of several hundred kilometers, you cannot see the sphere.
You can still say that the Earth is flat, but it's no doubt.
And that it's really beautiful from the eyes of the Apollo astronaut. You can see the blue bubble. The Earth looks like a blue bubble. Really, really beautiful.
Well, we've seen that from our lunar missions, taking pictures back to Earth.
Seen these pictures. We're talking about pictures, and the Shenzhou-16 had these pictures of the space station, right? So they separated, and that's what they were doing before they started on the journey back, right? Taking photos of the space station.
With a high definition camera. So I believe several days later, maybe we can see the formal release of this very beautiful video from China Manned Space Agency.
I mean, how challenging would that task have been to take those photos? Because I think they were flying. Were they flying around the space station?
Just with the help of the propulsion system on the, as Mr. Xu mentioned, the service module or the propulsion module. So we can have a maneuver just circling around our Tiangong space station. We do have the videos and the images of the whole Tiangong station, but that from the previous missions, we just either the Tianzhou spacecraft or the Shenzhou spacecraft approach and leave the station in a certain routine, in a certain path. So that they do not have a chance to make the video in all directions. So this time we just, with a handheld high definition camera, we take the video of the whole station from different directions. So that must be a very, very, I believe, very, very exciting moment for all of us.
Yeah, that's definitely, that's also another first for China.
This is taking a bit of time for them to,
I mean, usually I think they come out a lot faster than this. But we heard back from the astronauts earlier, and they said that they are physically well. What sort of complications do you think there could be?
Could be, like I said, the unbuckling of the safety belt. I think probably the opening of the hatch took some time, and then they have the readjustment of the posture of the astronauts, because maybe they could be upside down, facing.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
As in facing downwards,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Quite right. So they must be trained for this many times. Because in most cases, the capsule will lying down during the re-entry.
So I mean, if they were suspended essentially,
Exactly.
and facing downwards,
with their safety belt.
They'd have to come down very carefully. Right?
So that is reason why we say that during the Shenzhou-16 mission, when the 3 astronauts coming out of the capsule, they are in very good condition, because the vertical touchdown will be more comfortable than this.
Yeah. They're like lying on bed.
Yeah.
But all of these are efforts on, one of the major goals is to use the Chinese space station as a stepstone for more ambitious program like lunar missions.
Right.
Astronauts like we have mentioned, young generation astronauts are experiencing microgravity environment, working in that conditions, and in preparation for maybe future selection of lunar astronauts that can travel and work on the surface of the moon and then came back safely. All of these are, we call a stepping stone or a validation platform for future missions, in particular more ambitious missions of the moon and Mars.
Is there a possibility of the space station being used as sort of a platform to the moon, like a pit stop
It's
before
just
you head off?
as you mentioned, it's just can be recognized as a platform to test all kinds of technologies for the lunar missions, for the human lunar mission. But that because of the features of orbital dynamics, our astronauts will go to the moon directly, not from the China's Tiangong space station. Because that to go to the moon, we must facing the moon directly with its orbit. But usually that is not the same orbital plane of the Tiangong space station. So that is the reason why we should go to the moon directly. Moreover, you see that we use the Long March 10, the new generation launch vehicle, to be the launch vehicle to be used in the future missions to the moon. And that's the Long March 10, especially the third stage. The third stage of the Long March 10 use the liquid hydrogen and the liquid oxygen as a propellant. And that the liquid hydrogen is very difficult to be stored in outer space for a long period. So they can only stay there in orbit for maybe 1 or 2 orbits, and then just go to the moon to conduct what we call the translunar orbit insertion.
Right. So it has to be conducted from Earth.
Yeah. It is also interesting in these days. Just on the social media, there is saying that Mr. Jiang Xinlin is the ideal one for the future lunar mission, because he has for the Mr. Jiang Xinlin from the Shenzhou-17 crew, because he not only has experience to piloting fighter jet, the experience to piloting a Shenzhou spaceship, but he also has the experience to drive a tank. So maybe he's very ideal for the future mission to drive our lunar rovers, manned lunar rovers on the lunar surface.
Or lunar tank.
He'll need to come back first from the space station and go through his rehabilitation.
Because that he's only 35 years old. For his first mission, he becomes a veteran after this Shenzhou-17 mission. So in the future, he has plenty of chances to go back to the outer space, even the future lunar mission.
Absolutely. I mean, by 2030, and that's just in the next few years, that will come much sooner than we expect. Well, the space station is also going to be expanded as well, right? So right now it's got these 3 modules, but it will eventually be expanded to 6, perhaps?
Yes, but first we will add the 4th module to the space station to change the configuration from a T-shaped one to a cross-shaped one. With the 4th module, that also a 20-ton level module, very huge. It will have more docking ports and more berthing ports. With more docking ports, we can add to have more than 3 spaceships, either a Tianzhou cargo spacecraft or a Shenzhou manned spacecraft attached to the station. So this brings more flexibility of the future arrangement of our different missions.
Right.
That during you may still remember just during the Shenzhou.
We're hearing from the search crew, the rescue crew.
Prepare for going out.
That's right. They've just announced the astronaut is preparing to come out now.
So that means that with the help of the ground team, especially the medical team, they already accomplished the readaptation to the gravity. So they are in good shape.
Would they be experiencing a big change in the air? Would that be something that they could feel?
Not
the
much.
difference of?
Not much difference. Probably only the temperature and the freshness.
Right.
The inner ear of the astronauts will feel, orientation on the Earth gravity. They have to find their center of gravities and directions. So they get oriented once they're landed. Right. So the inner ears and the brains get somehow adapted to the gravity of the Earth, and then they start the right movement. Sometimes they get disoriented once they landed immediately. So we will see that the preparation of the chair, that is for
Mr. Jing Haipeng. Yeah. And also we can see a sleeping bag to keep him warm.
And also padded as well, right?
Oh, Mr. Jing Haipeng is already out of the capsule.
You can see him waving away.
东风明白。
One out, 2 more to go.
And that's Captain Commander Jing Haipeng. We see they're back home, they're on Earth, but they are quite far from their first step back on Earth, right? It'll be a while yet.
But they will quickly adopt and stand up.
He's smiling, he's happy.
Yeah.
We expect to hear from him as well. See the press, the reporters.
局长你好，欢迎回家。
Mr. Jing, welcome back. And with CMG,
作为飞天次数最
so
多的中国航天
as the
员，
most
在追求
experienced
梦想的
cosmonaut
道路
of
上
China,
不断
in your
创新，
pursuit of
时刻返
dreams,
回
you've
地
been
球，
making
有什么
breakthroughs
想
after
对中国人民
breakthroughs.
表
So
达
what do you
的？
want to say to the people of China right now?
此时此刻，
At
非
this
常激动
moment,
激动啊！
I am very
我们终于
excited.
回家了，
And
回
finally,
到
we've
祖国母亲
returned
的怀
home
抱。
to the embrace of our motherland.
5个月的任务，
After 5 months of missions and
这
all
次
tasks are
到
completely
咱们
finished.
空间站出差啊，感
And
觉
I
很
think this
感
trip
觉
to
很
China
爽。
Space Station
首
is
先
a
我
wonderful
为
experience
两
for
个搭档
me. And I want to
好兄弟
also say on behalf of
精彩
my
表现
partners, my
要
two
点
partners,
赞。
for their wonderful
在
experience
这次
and
任务当中
performance.
啊，我们乘组做到了
They have done such a
开
great
心
job
生活，
and
高效
we
工作，
led a happy
所有
life
的
and
操
efficient
作啊，
work
包括指令的发送。
experience in space, and no mistakes were made, and this
把
is
广大
a
广大
zero
科研
mistake
界
mission,
看智慧
and I
智慧
think
梦想都变
we
成现实。
have
而且
made
兑
all
现
of
了
these
承诺，
aspirations
向
of
党和人
into
交上了
reality,
有力
and
的
we
有力的
have
答卷。
lived up to the
这是天地
expectations
天
of the
地
country,
一
the
乘
party,
组
and
乘
the
组一起
people.
共同努力的结
And
果，
this is the result of
海鹏
joint
之所以
efforts
实现
and
实现梦想，
teamwork.
超越梦想，
I think
升华梦
we
想，
can
创
realize our
创新
dream
梦想。
and also
所有这
exceed our
些
dreams
都是
and
党和人
create new
教育
dreams. And this would not be possible without instructions
我要
and the
感
contribution of the
感
party
感
and
伟
people
大的
and
大
the
的牺牲。
country.
那么
And
作为一名
I think
航天
my
员，
highest
身
tribute
身
goes
可以
to the
但是
country
但是
and
灵
also the
魂不能
times.
失重，走上飞船
We may be
走下
overloaded
飞船
in
就是
physically,
普
but
通
we
一兵，
cannot be
我将
overloaded
时刻准备
mentally.
任
And
党
I'm
挑选，
always
为
ready
新时代中国航天事
for the
业
next
再立
mission
新冠。
and also make new
最后呢，
contributions
最后
to
呢，代
China's
表我们
aerospace
深圳最好
missions.
最好听乘组，
Last but
向
not
向
least,
国
I
致
want
敬，
to
国致
speak
敬，
on
向
behalf
向
of
全国
the
各种人各种人民致敬
Shenzhou-16
致敬。
crew. I want to say I want to thank all of the people and my country. Thank you.
And that there is Commander Jing Haipeng. Very happy to be back.
So we can see that Commander Jing Haipeng is in very, very good condition and can give us a very great lecture.
Definitely. He sounds energetic, and I'm glad to hear that he said that they had a happy life up there.
Yeah.
Not just, and he mentioned that 0 mistakes, right? Just
Exactly.
completely smooth, completely successful. And importantly, they were happy there for 5 months.
And more important that he sing high praise of his 2 colleagues,
Yeah.
the very young colleagues are from the 3rd generation.
And we see quick deflation of the face already The swollen face has disappeared. In comparison with pictures a couple of days ago in the station,
right?
in the handover.
Oh, I didn't see those pictures, but the difference is very visible.
Drastic, yeah. It was shiny.
So be glad to be back to his normal self.
So you can see this is we have 3 this kind of ground vehicle,
and they're all numbered
each
there as
with
well.
a very comfortable condition for the astronaut. They can have their first meal there, and even it has toilet inside.
So
What kind of health checks do you think they'll be undergoing in these vans?
very comprehensive, but I think once they're in their own RV, they will be quite comfortable, and then they will start adopting gravity and don't have to make too much efforts, and they have to ship to medical center. There's a particular institute for astronauts to check their complete health conditions, including muscles, bone loss, cardiovascular systems, blood, temperatures, and all the details. Even,
That'll be back in Beijing, right? These checkups?
that will be conducted back in Beijing.
So
And
expecting
we just heard a
Zhu
voice
to
that
come
Mr.
out.
Zhu Yangzhu is going to go out of the vehicle
And there's this chair getting ready, preparing for him.
for Mr. Zhu Yangzhu, and our first flight engineer.
That's right.
Mr. Zhu Yangzhu is formerly a deputy professor from the Aerospace Engineering University. So he also has a PhD degree. So this crew is called doctor's crew. And
I mean, you could see the difference from when they were giving these lectures as well. They were clearly very experienced when we watched that space lecture. They're very experienced in teaching.
you know that he, like me, he also has a PhD degree on fluid dynamics. So I believe that he's very good at in charge of all the experiments on microgravity to studying the phenomena of fluid dynamics.
Well, that's the first application crew, and that's the doctor crew that they have a very high degree of education.
Right.
Even Mr. Gui is also professional education people.
But this would be very much the pattern of future missions, right? Future crews to the space station. This mix of pilots and mix of scientists.
Yes.
And here's Zhu Yangzhu coming out now. Lifted very carefully. You can see him waving as well. And we'll be able to hear from him very soon as well.
Wrap up and leaving one arm for salutation.
Probably, presumably, they've gone this whole time without any food either.
你好，杨总，欢迎回家，欢迎回家。
Hello, Mr. Zhu.
作为空
Welcome
间站
back.
的首位航天飞行工程师。
As the first engineer in the space station after 5 months of working, what do you feel right now returning to Earth? Would you like to share with all of us?
回家的感觉真好。
First of all, it's good to be back.
另外啊，我感到非常的幸运。
I feel very lucky and honored to be the first space engineer to join the mission. At this moment, I would like to first of all thank the times, the new era. I think it is a perfect stage for us to realize our dreams, and it's an opportunity to make the best of the resources of our time, and with instruction of the controlling center and also support of all the researchers and engineers, the crew work together to pour our energies together to successfully complete all missions, and we have also witnessed the wonderful performance of the space lab of our space stations, and I will spare no efforts to work harder in the future so as to return to space, and we can have higher expectations for the space stations in the future.
And that's Zhu Yangzhu, and then he's talking about already talking about going back potentially to the space station, right? Looking forward to the next mission. So he's with the second, or was it the third batch of Chinese?
The third batch.
The third.
Yeah. Mr. Zhu Yangzhu and Mr. Gui Haichao are the first ones to conduct their further missions who comes from the third batch of astronauts. Also, you know that Mr. Zhu Yangzhu, his second case is less than, at this moment, his second is less than 1 year old.
Aww. And he's missed the first half year.
So his family also do so great contribution to his career.
Absolutely.
Lots of expectation back to home, seeing his family.
But it's for them now, for these astronauts, you know, they're up in the space station so far away, but yet they can easily just contact family every day.
They do have a lot of access to internet and to communications.
They have video calls with their family members in their mission. We have formed this tradition to have, if they miss their family member, to have homesick, they can have a video call with his family.
So it's an extended work trip.
FaceTime.
So he's with the third batch of astronauts, and the ones, the Shenzhou-17 currently up there, they are a mix of third and second, right? Third and fourth? Third and fourth.
It's the first time we only have the second and the third batch.
The second and third, okay. The fourth batch is currently in training.
In chosen. In selection.
But Jing Haipeng is on the first batch.
Yeah.
Right.
He was born 1966, so he's 57 years old.
So this one is, the Shenzhou-16 is a mix of first and third.
Yeah.
And then the Shenzhou-17 is a mix of second and third.
Second, third, yes.
What's the sort of interval time between each batch of astronauts? Selection?
Basically, decade, generation difference. But the selection of first and second batch are based on Air Force background.
We have 14 members on the first batch, all male astronauts from the fighter pilots, and 7 on the second batch, 2 female and 5 male. And we have 18 on the third batch. Among the 18 members, we have 7 pilots, 7 flight engineers, and also 4 payload experts.
But I traveled with Liu Yang, the first lady astronaut to outer space. We traveled together to other countries, and on the way we were discussing about the different batches. And she said different batches do have like a generation gap. They don't communicate so much, and they don't feel so close to each other. But the same batch, they do feel like brothers. Yeah.
So then this sort of cross-generational crews that we have here.
It's based on work.
But as Jing Haipeng was saying, they were getting along very well.
After 5 months, I'm sure they have acquaintance and friendships.
Yeah, you'd hope so, right? They become like family after that long.
Otherwise, you can't survive.
Third and last astronaut coming out now. That's great, Haichao. And he's the payload expert.
Let's see if he's with his glass.
Nope, no glasses on.
So contact lenses works.
Yeah, there's no risk of contact lenses.
海潮你好，欢迎回家。作为空间站的首位载荷专家，在过5个月的科学实验是否顺利？后续有什么打算？
What is your plan next? How do you feel right now? I think our mission has been very smooth, and we've completed all tasks. And I feel very privileged to be the payload expert in the space station in the past 5 months, and would not be possible without the support of all the researchers and engineers. And we've been working together in the space station, and every day has been so fruitful and wonderful. And I have grew from a student to right now a teacher and then a technologist. And I think I could research in space right now, and this is all attributable to the collaboration of the party and the people, and also the joint efforts of all the technologists and space professionals. Whether in space or on ground, I will be forever longing for space and also practice my duty as a taikonaut and as a teacher, and will live up to my aspirations. And I look forward to returning to the space station next time to do more expeditions. Thank you.
And that there is the third and final astronaut to come out of the Shenzhou-16 return capsule there. That's Haichao. He's also the first payload expert to go up to the China space station. And he too will be lifted off to his own personal medical van to get a more comprehensive medical check-up.
好的，现场的情况就是这样。这里是中央广播电视总台记者从着陆现场发回的报道。
Reporter who's live with the CCTV Chinese.
北京明白。
So you see, there's no salutation. There's no salute, only waving. So it's civilians back to Earth.
Mr. Guai Haichao also
各号注意，
brings more hope
我是
to
北
the
京
common people to have
神
the
舟
chance to
16
live.
号返回舱正常返回东风着陆场，3名航天员状况良好。神舟16号载人飞行任务取得圆满成功。
And that there was the message from the Beijing Ground Control Aerospace Control Center saying that the Shenzhou-16 astronauts have landed safely, they are well, and the 16 mission is successfully complete. So big congratulations to all of them. They'll be off to doing lots of comprehensive medical checks now to make sure that they are all well adjusted to Earth in this gravity condition.
熊营长。
该名航天员已抬送至机间右侧，现场转入载体内机间一保
That is from the Lunar search crew there, also reporting back again the status and saying that the astronauts are well and transferred.
They're in monitoring, well, they call it health monitoring conditions. So the conditions are being closely monitored. All sensors will be attached to them and also collecting bio.